Hi, and welcome to Try to Understand Everyone. My name is Miguel. My pronouns are he, him, his, and some other important identities I hold are I am Nate Chamorro, born and raised on the island of Guam, and I'm a gay cis man. I am joined today by my co-facilitator, Jessica.
Hi everyone. My name's Jessica. I'm filling in for Katrina today. I will never live up to Katrina though. She's the best. Anyway, my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Some other important identities that I hold is that I identify as Korean, but I was born in Colorado, and I also identify as a heterosexual cisgender woman.
Yeah. Today we'll be discussing Pacific Islander identities with our panelists. Panelists, if you are comfortable, will you please introduce yourselves, your name, your pronouns, and other important identities you want to share? Afterwards, we will begin asking questions for our discussion. As a reminder, or as a heads up, I am a panelist for today, and we're joined with Jackie.
Hi, my name is Jackie. My pronouns are she, her, hers. A few identities that are really important to me is that I'm a colored woman, half Japanese, half Filipino. Yeah.
Awesome. Now let's begin today's try session. Jessica, will you start us off?
Yes, okay, let us start with the first question. And I'll be making sure to put these in the chat as well, if any of you would like to read the question as well. So the first question is, what does APIDA mean to you? And if either of the panelists would like, if you know what APIDA stands for, that'd be great if you could share that as well. Let's go ahead on my screen. Let's just start with Miguel, and then we'll go with Jackie afterwards.
Awesome. So APIDA stands for Asian Pacific Islander Desi American. When I first learned of the term, like it was here in college, it was going through or like becoming involved with APACC. And for a while, I used to not like identify with it because like I don't know, I feel like some disconnect with the term American. While Guam is a U.S. territory, I feel like it's very different growing up on Guam than growing up in the U.S. There's a lot of experiences that um, are mutual to a lot of people that grew up in the U.S. that I don't have. I do see like a lot of American culture on Guam, but like the culture shock of moving to the US was just completely different from anything that I've ever experienced. So there's like there's like a lot of disconnect that I feel with the PETA like term itself, just because like that American. But like with my time here, uh, I've been starting to experience all of it, and like I'm becoming more comfortable with identifying that way. Because like at first I was like purely just from Guam, having experienced only Guam, but now this is my third year in the US, and like at this point, like I feel like I can claim it without feeling weird about it. I don't know, that's my take.
For me, APIDA, like I didn't know what APIDA was before college. I didn't know it was a thing. But like when I started to hear about it, it was interesting for me to learn that like Asian didn't have like their own specific one. It was like a huger umbrella than just like Asian, and like because no one in Hawaii like ever talked about it and things like that. So it was really interesting to learn about. Um, but since going to college and learning what APIDA meant and how it like brings a lot of people together, I found it easier for me to like, as Miguel was saying, like identify with APIDA and like find other folks that also identified with it that we could connect on a different level, not just like, oh, you're in my class, you kind of look like me. Oh, you identify as APIDA. There's something we can connect about, and we can talk more in depth about that.
Nice. Thanks for sharing, you two. So we're gonna just kind of like transition into the next question, which kind of goes with the first one, but this one is, what does your identity mean to you? What are parts of it that you love? And then what are parts of it that you don't?
So again, I'm native Chamorro, born and raised on Guam. Um, this is a really big question. Um, to me, like being native Chamorro was like a really big part of like who I am and my identity. Um, it's like an ongoing joke and like just a fact of life that everywhere I go, I like hardcore represent like where I am, where I'm from, and who I am. Like with my Guam flag in the background, my hydro flask has Guam on it. My wallet, the jackets I wear, like a lot of the things that I have on me at all times, like heavily represent Guam, and that's just because I never knew just how much like just how important it was to me. Because growing up, Guam and being Chamorro was like surrounded. I was surrounded by it. It was something that I saw all the time, and not once did I feel disconnected from it. But here in the states, um, that's changed. It's not necessarily the same. I know of maybe 5 total other Chamorros in the U.S. right now, or like in Fort Collins at CSU right now. And this is out of school of like 30,000 students. So I don't know. There's not my culture isn't surrounding me anymore, and uh, as like my time in the U.S. like became longer, it my identity was something that I didn't want to like reach for it in my memories and be like Guam is 6,000 miles away. I wanted me to be like a source of my own culture. So that's why I hardcore represent. Like if I don't see it coming from anywhere else, then let me be the one to do it. Because who knows? Maybe there's another Chamorro who feels exactly the same way, but they don't broadcast it as much. Um, so yeah, being native Chamorro was like really important to me. Like I It's like not even my own accomplishment, but I love saying my people conquered the ocean. Um, so yeah, that's great. What are parts of it that I love? Hands down, 100% food. I absolutely love the food from Guam. Um, I try to cook as much as I can, just because like there's no other food here can compare. Mainly because that's what I grew up on. Um, and it's really great. And like the family ties and the hospitality that we like just instill in our culture. Uh, I don't know. It's really great coming from a culture that's like so surrounded on community and like bringing each other up and providing for each other. That I just genuinely love. Um, Parts of it that I don't necessarily love is the fact that we were colonized for maybe 400 or 500 years, and with that comes like a lot of erasure of tradition, a lot of erasure of culture, and um, recently there's like talks about like our like traditional dances and stuff aren't very Chamorro, but instead like combinations of like other cultures instead of its own unique thing. Because of that erasure, like because of that erasure, we had to like point to other people as inspiration for us, like within the 1940s. So it sucks that a lot of my history isn't as widespread as it once was, or like tradition and culture isn't what it used to be. But I'm really, really happy that there's people making the strides to still represent and make our own identity special and unique in its own way. Yeah.
Um, for me, being born and raised in Hawaii has like played a huge role in like how I see the world. Um, Even though I'm not Hawaiian, like I grew up with this culture of like giving and family and the aloha spirit, and that's like played a huge role in like myself and finding like what kind of job I want to do, which is hospitality. You know, I want to like work with people. Um, it's a huge like part of me because it's like everything I do every day is like built off of my identity as a woman, as a native, or like a local, as an Asian. It's like because of the things I identify with, that's how I act every day, and it like greatly affects the people around me, because not everyone around me is the same. So I have to like take that into consideration too. Um, um, some parts of it that I love is same as Maget is the food. Um, although it's harder for me to make my food because I can't go out and fish and catch some ahi, but it's okay. I can buy it. It's just as good. Um, but I do love the food and love the fact that like the aloha spirit, as I was saying, like we're very open and caring and like ready to give to people and things like that. But at the same time, that's also the part of it that I don't like at points, because I feel like I give so much of myself, as just like my culture and how I was raised, but it feels like I don't always get that in return because people grew up with different cultures, whether it was like instead of giving, oh, they show it through other aspects of like doing work and things like that. Um, so yeah, but yeah.
For sure, yeah. There's definitely parts of our identities that we like and we don't like, and but we learn how to live with both somehow. Okay, so the next question that we're gonna move into is about the model minority myth. So for those of you that don't know exactly what that is, I'll be putting in like an explanation of it in the chat. But the question is, what are your experiences with the model minority myth?
Yeah, so what's it called? My mom can I call her like the typical like Asian tiger mom with like uh was it one like very vivid experience that like definitely shaped who I am is um going into high school, like what am I, 14 years old, just leaving middle school. My mom was already telling me, so I'm gonna be valedictorian of my college class. And I'm nowhere near being valedictorian now, but like all of that pressure from like the moment I entered high school was like in a bright light, very inspiring, but also extremely terrifying and not fun. Like the whole concept of like me having to succeed in academics was like, I don't know, it really affected me growing up. Um, like I feel like I do school very well now because of it, and also I have a ton of anxiety because of it. Um, yeah, like this is just one very specific aspect of the model minority, and I don't know. I just it's not a great experience. Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that. Um, growing up, I wanted to be a veterinarian, and um, as as the model minority myth like suggests, that was something that my parents supported, my grandparents supported very much, very strongly. But going through college and figuring out what I actually wanted to do, telling that to my grandmother was difficult because she was very set on me becoming a doctor, going to vet school, and like making the big bucks, right? And even now, as I told her like what I want to do, what I'm passionate about, she doesn't believe it. She still tells me, oh, that's the wrong choice. You made the wrong choice. You can always change it. Go back to being a doctor. Go to school for that. I can help pay for that school, but I'm not going to help you pay for school to be like a hotel manager. And so that's what I've been through with my family. But luckily my mom was very accepting of it, and she was like, follow your passions, because that's what she did, and she's a teacher. They don't make a lot of money, but that's her passion. So it's like she wanted me to follow her footsteps. But yeah, it's more of like the older generation for me and my family, telling them like that I don't want to do what a typical Asian person should be doing was hard for them to accept.
Adding on to what Jackie said, like I don't know, like switching major and like telling family, like again with my mom. I'm currently studying civil engineering, engineering specifically because of like all of the like pushing to be uh a great student and all that. Um, at first, I came to college really wanting to be an aerospace engineer, an aeronautical engineer, like to work with NASA or like uh airline companies or whatever. And when I told my mom that I'm gonna switch to civil engineering, she got very sad. Um, and I remember her reasoning being, "It doesn't sound as fancy," and that was hard to take. And definitely a lot of fun experience too. Oh yeah.
Cool. So I think we've already kind of like, you two have kind of mentioned this in terms of like not fitting in a sense, or just like not necessarily identifying with something completely. So our next question is going to move into the perpetual foreigner myth. Again, if y'all don't know what that is, I'm going to be putting the definition inside the chat. The question with that is, what are your experiences with the perpetual foreigner myth?
Yeah. So for me, I remember like when I first got to CSU, um, I think like they had all of the like hubs and organizations on the plaza. I remember walking up to Bram Catholic because I was raised Catholic. Um, so I was like, I should join this club. Just be like, what's good? Um, I was wearing a Guam t-shirt because that's what I do. The first thing they asked me, or like one of the first comments they made to me was like, wow, you speak really good English. I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's my first language. Um, and then it was followed up with, what other languages do you speak? I'm like, well, I took Japanese in high school. Um, and I don't know, it was like a very weird thing of like I already mentioned, like I already feel like a disconnect from like being called like a like American in that sense. But also I thought it was common knowledge that Guam was a US territory and like extremely heavily influenced by the US. So I don't know, it's kind of weird. It was like a weird first experience for me to be like, oh, so like I don't think I belong here, and other people don't think I belong here either. Um, and what what is continued to today is like even in my third year of college at this point, like I've had the same classes with the same like group of people. They all like still, or like there's a couple of them that still reference me only as like that one guy from an island. Because I remember taking like a geotech or like a geotechnical engineering lab where it was like a fun day where all we were doing was building sandcastles, and it was like there's like there's definitely like a purpose behind it, but there was a comment that was like, better watch out for this guy because he's from an island. He knows exactly what to do. I was like, oh, okay. So not because I'm a good student, not because I'm getting good grades. It's just like purely because like I'm from an island. Like, all right, cool. I don't know. It was weird. Like it didn't feel like aggressive in any way, or harmful in any way. It was just weird. And I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that's me.
I guess for me, one of the first things that happened when I came to college, my first year, I was in a classroom and we were going through like the normal introductions. And of course, the teacher asked, like, oh, where are you from? Like, answer that as a question. And at that time, like, I just took that as like, oh, where was I born? Where was I raised? I was like, yeah, I'm from Hawaii. And like the first question I got from like a student sitting next to me was like, are you Hawaiian? Can you speak Hawaiian? Where is Hawaii? And it's like, we are the 50th state of the United States. And they didn't know that. And I was shocked. I was like, how do you not know at least the 50 states? First of all, I was taken aback by that. But whenever I tell someone that I'm from Hawaii, their first thing to ask me is like, oh, can you speak Hawaiian? Are you Hawaiian? Do you know how to dance hula? All that. Sorry, that's my brother. Um, all that stuff. And it's like, no, 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 and no. I do eat Hawaiian food and I support the culture I was born and raised in, but it's always like whenever you tell somebody that you're where you're from, whether like if it's a different place than where they're used to hearing about or like the mainland America, they always have to ask like, oh, can you do all these stereotypes? You can't usually, or like typically it's a no. And it's like, why did you expect me to be able to do these things? Because I don't usually get the question for the Asian persona part of me. Um, I don't know why, but I think it's because I always introduce myself as being from Hawaii first. And so that's what they hear before they hear, oh, yeah, I'm Japanese and I'm Filipino. So, yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah, for sure. I just like wanted to acknowledge something real quick in the chat. Carl said, I'm struck by the tension between first gen experiences and the model minority myth. I believe both of you, maybe that's a wrong assumption, but both of you are first identify as first gen students, at least, no? We get it? Did you like maybe like want to comment on that, or if you had like any ideas or thoughts you want to share about that, or if not, we can move on.
Yeah. Um, quick question towards Carl. Is this like first gen student or like first gen to the US?
Yes.
Cool. um, so as a first gen student, like it was like a really, really big deal for me to like leave Guam, like to study. Um, so of course, like it had to be like uh intense major like engineering. It became what I wanted to do. At first, it was just like a semi, I guess I'll do this. Um, and there's like a lot of pressure to graduate and like do it well, or like to go through school really good, um, and graduate on time. However, like that's not the case. I pushed back my graduation date to like make things easier for me. Um, and so I'll now be graduate. I was supposed to graduate spring 2021, but now I'm graduating fall 21. And when I told my mom this, she was like, she was really saddened by it. Like, it wasn't that I was still graduating. It wasn't that uh, I made a decision that was best for me. It was that it wasn't what she was like expecting anymore. And honestly, I after like after I told her, she said she like had like her sad spiel about like, oh, this sucks. This isn't gonna work out for me or whatever. And I just like told her, Mom, I'm tired, and then I hung up, ended the call there. So like there was a lot of pressure there. Um, Thankfully enough, though, my mom called me maybe 30 minutes or an hour later, like saying that she realized what she said was like wasn't like the best thing to say, and she recognized that the way she was reacting wasn't like wasn't acknowledging me at all. It was only like spewing out how she felt about it, and I don't know. It felt good in the to like hear it, but it didn't necessarily like fix all of the initial reaction. And then like as a first gen in the US, it's also weird because my mom, like for like the past like 5 months has been calling every day saying, "Is it snowing outside?" I'm like, "Well, the weather changes every day. Is it still raining outside on Guam? Because it was raining yesterday." I'm like, "No." Also, I have a very sarcastic relationship with my mom, so that explains that. Uh, but yeah, like it's weird because I didn't really have an experience with her like being super close to her growing up, and then now she like calls every now and then, being like, "Hey, is it snowing outside again? Do you want me to send more food?" It's like all really nice things, and like, well, this is coming out of nowhere. Uh, so I think it's just her way of checking up on me, and I don't know. It's weird like how that clashes with the first generation student, like how I have to be perfect and everything, and then like first generation in the U.S. like, let me check up on you all the time, and like I feel like each of these cases is like, am I meeting her expectations still? And that's a hard thing that I'm still working to get out of my mind. Like I should be working on my own expectations, not hers. That's a different conversation. Yeah.
Well, you're doing great, Maget. Don't you ever forget that. Same with you, Jackie. I'm glad you're doing things that make you happy. And great question, Carl, or comment. Brought up a really good conversation. So yeah, I think that brings up a lot of different things too. And then that's just going to bring us into our next question in regards to the Pacific Islander identity, or just however the panelists are feeling. So the next question is going to be, I think we've kind of already kind of touched into identity, but this next question is, do you feel like Pacific Islanders belong / fit best within the Asian umbrella? And so this might include feelings of not being Asian enough, and things like that. So if either of you wanted to start touching on that.
Yeah. So again, when I first came to CSU, uh I didn't go into APAC really at all my first year because I knew it like very like surface level as like a spot for Asian people. And not once have I ever heard that Pacific Islander and Asian were together. So like it was very weird for me to like maybe like that I belong in this Asian space. And then I learned the term APIDA. I actually figured out that APAC stands for Asian Pacific American. Um, so that was like something to come like figure out, I guess. But like personally, I feel like Pacific Islanders are put under the APIDA umbrella purely because of like geography rather than like similarities, because or like kind of, but a lot of the similarities that or I feel like that Pacific Islanders have with Asian culture stems from like our proximity to each other rather than like us like just naturally having the same uh, like culture in a way. Because I've like in conversations with my uncle and conversations with like uh, a few of my Native American friends, it turns out that we have a lot more in common with, or like we have a lot in common with Native Americans. Like uh, my uncle was saying he went to like a museum on like hunting and gathering tools in a reservation once, and the native words that they had were the exact same word that we had for like a specific like ancient tool that was kind of like a hoe or whatever. But I forgot what the word is, but like we had the same words as some Native American people, and I thought that was really freaking cool. But yeah, I personally I don't feel like Pacific Islander like completely belongs with Native American or completely belongs with Asian, because of the similarities between both, I guess, groups. I feel like we're a really good like bridge, go between like duality, I guess. Uh, yeah, that's my take on it.
For me, it's like I'm in the same boat as Maget. Like when I first came to CSU, I didn't want to go into APAC, but it was more for the reason that I didn't find a reason for me to be identifying with like a cultural center, because like growing up in Hawaii, I I was like a normal person as anybody else, and there were Asians, there were mixed people everywhere, so it's like I didn't see the reason for having to go to a space to identify or like to like show off that I am Asian, until it like hit me later on when all the classes started and I saw that I was like the only one in those classes of like 200, 300 people that looked like me or like grew up in the same culture that I did. It was very different, and I found myself like needing APAC for like to find the community that I was missing, that I grew up with, that I couldn't find in my classrooms. And it's hard for me to answer this question because like at least in Hawaii, like there's so many cultures here that we've all like built up our cultures off of one another, from like how close everyone is and the new things that people bring in. It's like helping to grow each culture here. Like if you take for example pidgin, is like that's a very common language we use in Hawaii for like between locals. It's a mix of almost all of the languages used in Hawaii since being colonized. So there's like Japanese, Chinese, Portuguese, Filipino, English, that all make this one language that we all use. If if you're local, like, you would understand it. And it's just, I say like it kind of does fit under this umbrella of Asian, but it like it still doesn't, and I don't know how to like explain that part. But yeah, that's my take.
Sure. Thanks for sharing, you two. And also for anyone else that is in this session right now, if you like have any comments or like any questions, you can also like put them in the chat, or you can send them to either me or Maget, and then we can definitely ask the panelists those questions, or we can say those comments and stuff. So we're gonna go into the next question, which is something actually I don't know a lot about, but the question is, how would you describe the dynamic between Micronesia, Melanesia, and Polynesia? And I will put that question in the chat.
Okay, awesome. For me, I don't know, it's weird. Growing up on Guam, like the air and culture of Guam, a lot of people, or it can be said that people from Guam try to be Polynesian when Guam is part of Micronesia. And like that's I don't know, it's like a really weird way of saying that we want to, like Guam really wants to be like Hawaii. And my personal opinion is like we're two different cultures, and like yes, we can have our similarities, but like let's celebrate like our differences. Like one, like we both have different unique cultures. Let's celebrate those uniqueness, whether it's in parallel, but not like trying to be one another. But I haven't had much experience with this because I've like lived on Guam my entire life. But I've heard and like seen on Twitter and like other places that there's a lot of um, like discrimination towards Micronesian in Polynesia. Um, I've heard that people from Micronesia have been called roaches, uh, and like I would really love to say like I don't understand where that's coming from. I've never experienced this before, but on Guam there's like a very similar thing, which is really weird, and it brings it back to like Guam tries to be Polynesia, and the fact that older people on Guam like to say Micronesians are ruining the island, which is really weird because Guam is one Micronesian, so like I don't understand. Um, and two is like bringing down people that were part of when and like when they say Micronesians, they're like specifically talking about people from like Chook or Yap, and I don't know. It's very is the term racist? I don't know. It's very discriminatory, and I really hate it, especially like when it's within like this own like pocket community of Micronesian. Um, it makes me very frustrated and very upset. Like, what's going on? Um, but unfortunately, like all of this, like all like my current opinions, uh, are what stemmed from like after like the past maybe 3 4 years, like partially being in the U.S. and like just partially maturing on my own. Because when I heard it when I was younger, I was like, I don't know what you mean, but okay, this is what my grandma is saying. I'm not gonna question my grandma. Uh, so it was weird. It was weird that a lot of people are like talking shit about Micronesians, especially when it's happening on Guam when we're all Micronesian. Um, but yeah, I don't have any experience with people uh, or hearing anything about dynamics with Melanesians, and I think that in itself is like something to talk about because like if this is like a part of the Pacific Islander community that isn't like talked about, then what does that mean? Like, why are we? I don't know, like completely ignoring this one facet of like our entire Islander community. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Like all in all, like it just seems like everyone that I've experienced uh, is like shitting on Micronesia, idealizing Polynesia, and like just forgetting about Melanesia. It's weird. Also on TikTok, like everyone from Polynesia is like super proud to be from Polynesia. Like I liked one Polynesian post, and then now my TikTok feed is just full of like Polynesian dances and like, oh yes, get it Samoans, get it Tongans. I'm like, that's what's up. But also like, give me some Guam posts, please. Thank you. Yeah.
Um, I guess my experience is very similar to Maget's, because in Hawaii, like Polynesia is the Polynesian culture is the most celebrated one. Everywhere we don't ever really talk about Melanesia either, um, which is also a concern because like why aren't they getting any recognition or for being part of this islander community? But I've seen the same exact things happening all the way from like middle school, where people who were Micronesian were always getting bullied or put down for being Micronesian, by anyone that was a Polynesian, in school, regardless of like any other identities. But just the fact that they were Micronesian made them lesser than compared to like people who were Polynesian. And that was just like a tension between those two like cultures. It never involved like any other cultures, like any Asians or white folks. Like it was just those two. And it was like hard to see because I have a lot of Polynesian friends and family, uh, not so many Micronesian, and I don't know if like it was due to the fact that I grew up hearing that oh they were kind of bad or they were dirty, things like that, and so we wanted to like people wanted to stay away from them, and that's how I just grew up. I was never put into a space where I could interact with them because we were always like trying to separate ourselves from them in school, and like school is where all the peer pressure happens, so it's like didn't have much say in what was happening around me except like oh this is how it is now. um but yeah, I haven't really heard anything about like Melanesians, which is concerning because it's like they're a part of this too, and I don't know what their dynamic is with Polynesians or Micronesians, and I don't know if it's good or bad, but yeah.
I definitely
Uh,
did not know any of that. So thanks y'all for sharing that and teaching us some stuff. So the next question that we're gonna delve into. So what are your experiences with colonialism's impact on Native culture or tradition? So this can have to do with language, respect, dance, nature, etc.
Yeah. That's good. I feel like within if anyone's like genuinely trying to get to know me in the very beginning, it'll be just a matter of time until I start talking about colonization. Because haha, it's it's fun as fuck. Um, so whenever I'm asked, what's the native language of Guam? Do I know it? Things like that. Uh, I like always hurt just a little bit inside because I don't. I don't know my language very well. I can like confidently introduce myself. Buenas and Hafide ko husimiyet, but like it doesn't go any further than that really. I can't hold a conversation with my grandma. I can't hold a conversation with my dad. I can't hold a conversation with anyone because I just didn't learn it. I and like that's because of like colonization. Um, right now, Guam public schools are like it's a mandatory for Chamorro to be taught, but the nature around it isn't like it's important anymore. Um, and like that stems from when Spain first colonized Guam in like what 1500s. Um, they didn't necessarily like ban the language or whatever. They just straight up like forced Spanish into it, gave us a Spanish Anglo-Saxon alphabet, um, gave us the Spanish counting system of uno dos tres, um, and introduced a lot of Spanish words. I think what is it like? We both call tables la masa, or like buenas tardes is the Chamorro way of saying good morning or good afternoon instead of buenas tardes, things like that. Um, and when Japan and the US came in, it was completely outlawed for Chamorro to be spoken. People would get beat to death or like punished severely. So like it became a feared thing of speaking the language and it wasn't taught to people within like maybe a 20-40 year time span, enough for like a generation and a half to like know the language but keep it secret and to just not know the language. Um, like it's to the point where my grandma is fluent and like yeah, she's fluent, but my mom doesn't know or knows as much Chamorro as I do, maybe less. Um, and like she knows maybe less because I'm just trying to learn more. So it sucks that so much colonization has like completely made my language like almost inaccessible to me. Like it doesn't it's not natural. Like when people hear Chamorro being spoken, it doesn't seem like a normal thing. It's like, wow, they know it, they can speak the language. And it's even more so for like people my age. I know maybe 2 or 3 people in my age who are fluent in Chamorro. And like that's me growing up on Guam, like surrounded by my community. And like that really sucks to hear. I know there was one time at my high school we had like a presentation that was completely done in Chamorro, and I made the comment, um, it just really sucks that none of us can understand what this guy is saying because it's really like it was a really good conversation about like our roots and stuff like that, and I only found out afterwards or like by reading like the speech notes or whatever. But it was all in Chamorro, and like almost none of us could understand. People in the audience were like trying to stay awake because they just couldn't grasp onto what was happening. So like I don't know, colonization did like a really big number on like language itself for Guam. Um, yeah. Uh, as for respect, ancient Chamorro civilization, uh, like had like a system of reciprocity where like I'll give you something, you give me something. It's like just natural balance, like a trade for a trade. Ferdinand Magellan first like came to Guam like whenever he did. Uh, we ancient Chamorros offered him food, hospitality, a place to stay, all of that. Um, Ferdinand Magellan didn't give anything back, so a group of ancient Chamorros or a group of Chamorros went to Magellan's ships, took some stuff, and then when Magellan left, we became known as Isla de los Padrones, the island of thieves, and like that's a Amazing name. That's cool. And then he went to the Philippines and died. So big loss. Good times. What else? I mentioned this earlier with like Chamorro dance, where a lot of our tradition and culture has been like erased or changed or something. But with dance specifically and like chants, um, Chamorros like as late as the 40s, 50s ish have like been trying to reignite the culture by coming up with dances and songs. Um, where our dances look like a combination of Filipino and um, I think it was like Tahitian specifically or Hawaiian. I'm not entirely sure. And then our chants are like very Christianity influenced, where we have like a really powerful song about like asking permission from the land for the land, but it's sung to a like a Catholic tune. Like it's like transcribed like a Catholic song. This is a Catholic song, but except we're singing in Chamorro with a different purpose. Um, and I wanna take it as like this is us taking back from Christianity, but also like this is just like the influence it's had on us too. So that really sucks. Another really big thing on respect is Guam. Ancient Chamorro society was matrilineal or matriarchal and matrilineal, where women had the power and like last names were like our mom's last names, and like that's how it worked. Like the head of the household was like the oldest or the wife's brother. I don't know. It was weird. Um, but yeah, because of heteropatriarchy with Christianity and Spanish and all that fun stuff, like it's become a thing of like men are now the head of the household. Now women change their last names to their husband's last names. Um, what I have seen recently is like my last name is Cepeda Perez, technically, or like technically my middle name is Cepeda, but my last name is Perez. But like my last name is Cepeda Perez, and that's because Cepeda is my mom's name, Perez is my dad's name. Um, but there's like some families, like my friend Taga, his last name is Santos Solis with a hyphen, because like that's both of his parents' names in one, so that'll keep on going down. Yeah, but colonization did a really, really big number, and I'm really upset that I feel like I can't uh I don't know, enjoy my culture to like the extent that I could have, like with other cultures like Palau, Yap, or even Hawaii, with like how they're so in tune with their culture, how like a lot of people are learning the languages, learning the dances. But yeah, I have a lot of frustrations, and I don't know, that's my experience.
I think for me, it's a little different because, like Maget said, a lot of people in Hawaii are are embracing their culture a lot more, so it's growing in a sense. But the people themselves are are becoming a little scarce in a way. My friend is one of the few people I know that is more than 10% Hawaiian. Um, and it's very rare, if any, to meet anyone who's full Hawaiian, because ever since colonization and Captain Cook, it's it's almost impossible to have like a full Hawaiian person like alive now. She's actually 25%, which is amazing, but it's like they got kicked off of their land. White people took over the spaces, but at least now in Hawaii, like people who have a certain amount of Hawaiian blood in them are able to live in certain areas specifically for Hawaiian people, and they can go to like a school for Hawaiian people, Kamehameha schools. So they are able to like embrace their culture a little more, and a lot more people are learning how to dance hula, how to sing, how to speak Hawaiian as a way to embrace that culture, even though they don't identify um, like as Hawaiian, because they know the importance of keeping that alive and sharing like what has happened to these people, to everyone else. And I guess like Hawaiian culture, like luau's and hula dancing is slowly like growing and expanding. um, Other people are finding more and more interest in like seeing these performances and things like that, which is really good. And I hope it like continues because it's like a culture that's currently dying out and no one wants that. And it's like I hope the same can happen for like the Chamorro culture too, because like I didn't do this on my own. It takes a lot of people to make this happen. But it's something really cool that I've seen over the years, like more people being interested in like taking Hawaiian, just to take it and to learn about Hawaiian culture, rather than just appropriating it and being like, oh, look at this, I took Hawaiian 101, I can say hello and I love you, I'm really cool.
Yeah.
I want to like expand on like one of the other things that Jackie said about like how land, um, just land, Guam is maybe what 200 square miles, and about 30 to 33% of the island is the U.S. military bases. Um, we have a massive Air Force base and a massive like Navy base. Um, and like technically speaking, like with U.S. terms, Guam is considered a U.S. possession, uh, like not territory or Commonwealth or whatever. We are a possession, so that's fun. I technically do not have the right to vote for president until like I like change my residency to a state rather than Guam. Uh, our representative in Congress also doesn't have the right to vote. They're just there to look pretty, I guess. Um, so yeah, it's kind of shitty. Um, and at another point, I forgot it, but like, yeah, the U.S. is really good at taking land.
That's like a mic drop, like called out. So I think one of some Rachel, did you want to add on and say something?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can you speak up a little louder?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm also from Hawaii. I just wanted to add on to what Jackie said. That even though like some people identify as Hawaiian, maybe like 5%, they do hold that like pretty proudly. And they like, I don't know, I think it's like pretty cool that like everyone is mixed cultured here. What was I gonna say? Hold on, I'm trying to recollect my thoughts. Okay, I don't remember what I was gonna say, but oh, I took hula when I was in elementary school. It was kind of a popular thing to do, but because of that, I got to learn more about the Hawaiian culture. And personally, I identify as Japanese Okinawan. So it was really cool to experience that culture. And my kumu, she really elaborated on a lot of the songs that we learned, and she really described everything that was happening so that we could understand. So from that, I learned how to pronounce words properly in Hawaiian. And so whenever I hear someone say something, I'll like teach them about it and like educate them too. So I think it's like a cool way to share my experience. That was it.
Thanks for sharing, Rachel. We appreciate it. It's cool to have someone else add on and stuff. I just wanted to recognize that it is almost 6 o'clock. So I think I'll go ahead and ask like the last question, just to like wrap things up. And that question is, let me find it real quick. I'll also put this in the chat. And Rachel, if you wanted to answer this too, definitely go for it. But the question is, what makes you proud to hold your identity or to be a PETA? So what do you want people to take away from this? So an example could be that you're proud of the food and that you love it and eat it, and that, I don't know, food is cool. So yeah, whoever wants to start.
Awesome. For me, like, I just love writing the fact that I can say my people conquered the ocean. I don't know. It's like I had nothing to do with this, but it's like such a great accomplishment. Like, I don't know if you all saw Moana, but like that shit was great. With the whole like guiding with your hands and stuff. Like, I don't know. It's super cool. Like, I don't know. I just really like that. Well, like something very personal to me is like the food. I will first of all, I'm the one that wrote this question, and I did very much put the example of food because like that's my reasoning. Um, to me, like food means a lot. Is like the easiest way to get to connect with people. Like everybody loves food, and like everyone loves food. Um, I just love the way that Guam cooks their food. Guam has a ton of influence from like Asia, Spain, the U.S. for obvious reasons, but and like with our own like very like indigenous way of doing things. So like I think it's just a really great like amalgamation of culture. Like it's like colonization is terrible, but like this is one decent thing that came out of it, like a combination of culture that just seems so it's just so fulfilling food, and like a lot can be learned from the way from cooking in the way that like what's eaten, how it's eaten. I just think it's like a great way to get to know people, and like a great way to get to know culture. Yeah.
I just have to agree with the food. Um, that's like, if anyone ever comes visit me in Hawaii, or I meet up with you somewhere, I'd love to like cook some Hawaiian food for you, because that's like my favorite part about my culture. And like this whole idea of the aloha spirit, and just being able to love on everyone and give what you can to people. Like if you see someone struggling, you don't just walk by, and you're very like open and welcoming. Like that's the aloha culture, and that's just like what I want people to take away from this. It's just like embrace that, and yeah.
So it is officially 6 o'clock. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming, and especially to our two wonderful panelists, Maguette. Well, Maguette's on this side for me, Maguette and Jackie. So if we can just, yay! So yeah, like Maguette said, oh, beautiful! Wow, yeah. We're going to keep on having Try to Understand sessions. It is APIDA Heritage Month. We're celebrating it. To anyone watching this on YouTube, you should join the next session. Do it. But yeah, I personally have to go, but I'm sure Maguette will be in this space to leave it open if anybody wants to talk and chat and stuff. But I'm a peace out. So bye, everyone.
Thank you, Jessica. For further clarification, our next Chai session will be on April 21st at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and we will be covering transracial adoptees. Xian, one of our panelists, will be there. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for joining us, and y'all can leave if you want. If you want to hold a competition, I'll still be here.